elevate. You're stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I couldn't levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. When you elevate, you're stacking up losses.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin, and we got another special guest for you today. He is actually a friend of mine. He is a former gym owner, so we have that in common. And now he has turned marketing professional with Stoplight Marketing, and his resilience of, transforming from one business to a different industry and another business, and all in the process of moving states is amazing. So he's faced some mindset battles and continues to face that. He's in his growth year as well. So thank you, Brian Lelli, for coming on the show today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm excited. I thought you were going to introduce my dog as your main guest, but it's okay. I can too.
Yeah, you got your co-host back there and, taking a nap.
Yeah, he's resting up for later. He's going to jump in.
So, Brian, let's get started. And what was your first step in entrepreneurial? What made you want to open a gym?
Well, my first one was actually back in high school. I had a car detailing company, but that was probably illegal. But what I actually really did when I started my gym, it was an accident, to be honest. This was back in early 2000s, and I was training jiu-jitsu and MMA at a place, and I got to the point where there was a bunch of new people coming into this gym, and they were training because that's when the UFC was blowing up. Everyone was wearing their Affliction shirts and doing crazy stuff. I had got my nose broken 4 times in a 3-week period. And so I was I need to take a little break. I got to let this thing heal. And I was the only person at this MMA gym that worked out. Everyone else just trained. They just beat the crap out of one another. So, and I was leaving. They were like, I'm going to take a month off just to let this thing heal. And they're like, so we were talking about working out. Can we come over? And I had a little garage at the time. I was like, well, I have some stuff. I can teach you guys if you want to squat, bench, and deadlift. Cause I came from the powerlifting world and, lost a bunch of weight through doing, MMA and jiu-jitsu, cause just big, strong guys rolling around, they just lose weight. And so I had, 4 or 5 people from this gym drop by, and over the course of that month that I took off. And then this is kind of cool. I kind of like teaching because I've been lifting for 10 years prior to that. So I knew a thing or two. And one of my good friends at the time, he lived down the street. He came over and he's like, we worked out together at a real gym. And we could try to make this a thing. So we started telling people on Saturdays you can come over, we can work out. And just to give you a perspective, my garage at the time, my wife had a Mini Cooper that barely fit inside of it. It was very small. I think it was 280 square feet. So yeah, that was kind of cool because it turned into on the weekends we would have 12 to 14 people show up, and my neighbors were complaining because there was cars parked all over the place. We're flipping tires and making noise and stuff. So we made the decision to this is that big entrepreneurial jump, where my mindset had to be where it should have been. I was let's just try it. Let's just go. We found a place and we went for it. We signed the lease, and that's when it became real. That's when I went from fun, a fun mindset to I got to pay these people. We need to make this happen. So that business gear had to change. And that's when it all started.
That's crazy though. I mean, not only did we have that similar aspect of, being gym owners, but I actually started, as a personal trainer. And then when COVID happened and everything, I took it from renting gym space to my front yard essentially, because your garage, the garage that I was at the time, it was essentially, there was an ADU in the garage. And then the actual garage was essentially a storage unit, right? So I was loading all my equipment in there, pulling it out. And then I had, some rigs and stuff in the driveway. And then Strive started basically picking up with just friends and clients coming in between. And then that was kind of in between my personal training clients. And then that moved to the park because we needed more space and everything was still kind of shut down. And then that led to, actually opening and launching the gym and, now the franchise. So that's funny that we have, that little progression part in common, as well as, my background is MMA as well. So, that's crazy, Yeah. So like I did it from a young age, like, from 4 or 5, and, I was a black belt and, did that whole thing, which led me into fitness and all that. So that's crazy. I mean, I guess that's why we kind of clicked back in Palm Springs, fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's cool. Like, I've always had an affliction for martial arts. I mean, way back, even when I was a poor college student, I worked at my university's gym, and I would take that like $20 on my paycheck and go to like a drop in at an MMA place because I just wanted to do it because that was just so much fun. So yeah, it is cool. That's a lot of good crossover there.
No, that's awesome. So what led from your gym and your gym growing, right? What was that turning point? Because I know, now you're in the marketing space, and I know that there was a move involved, and you sold the business and everything like that. So like, what was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, when I had the gym, I remember probably like 2 or 3 days in, we were there. We were just barely starting to set stuff up, and we had someone walk in the door, like not a friend, no one we knew. And it was the most awkward conversation because I'm not a sales guy, like at all, not even close. And I remember he came, I was like, "So do you like fitness?" Like it was really weird. And that's when I realized like I should get better at marketing. So I started to learn a little bit about that. And over the 3 year period after that, where we just got into it, we grew from like 15 to 100 people at the gym. And I was like, well, I'm actually pretty good at this, I guess. Like, this is fun. Because at the same time, that was all a side hustle. I had a full-time job as a mechanical engineer at a small engineering firm. And so I was able to see that stark contrast in my mind of like my day job, like I'm good at it, but not really passionate about it. Like it can pay a bill or two. And then I would leave, go to my gym and be like super passionate and even better at it. And I just saw that huge difference in like my mindset. Like I went to work, I sat down, I was like a drone, like just typing away, doing stuff, and like, yeah, I'm good, whatever. Then I would go to the gym and just be like on fire. Like that extrovert would pop out and, oh, this is great. Like talking to, 15, 20 people in each class. And I was like, I really like this. So I kind of like, in my mind, that was the turning point where I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to go down the traditional path. So, we grew the business, and then, we were in upstate New York. That's where the gym was. I'm from Massachusetts, so I spent a lot of time around cold weather. And we had some family members and some friends that lived down in the Carolinas in Florida, and we visited. We're like, like this is kind of nice. Let's give this a shot. And it wasn't a long, like it wasn't a short time frame. I took 2 years to get the business ready for the move. And because at the time this was Brian's gym. Like that's kind of how it was. I had to take myself away as the person and let the gym be its own entity. And then we moved down here. I managed it for a little bit. And at the time, like I was still engineering, like on the side. I was running the gym remotely, and I had about 14 other CrossFit gyms that I was doing marketing for. And I had a 6-month-old. So very busy, very stressed. So I had to let the engineering go. That was easy to do. But then, I was like, the marketing stuff's working real well. Let's just keep moving into this. So I talked with my head coach and his family at the time, like, you guys are here all the time. Like, do you want to buy the gym? So we went through that process. They bought it, and kind of freed me up to really push heavily into the marketing side. And I'm able to tie that nerdy engineering brain into that fun, creative, entrepreneurial, like, let's go for it sort of mindset. And that's just kind of where I'm sitting now, and I'm loving it. Like I wouldn't change anything.
No, that's awesome. Those transitions, I mean, it's because like you were still doing everything at once, and obviously that's overwhelming, especially having a 6-month-old. I mean, I have a 2-year-old daughter now, and running a business with having a kid is definitely its own stresses. But what was that like with, because there's a whole different worry and a different fear, right? Because I mean, being an engineer, right? Like that's a good job, right? I mean, from my friends that are engineers and stuff like that, like I know that that's a career, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like for you and for your wife when you were like, look, like I'm way more passionate and I'm way more have way more purpose, that fulfilling me over here. Like, I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, no, and that was the family side was it was interesting. It was interesting on two sides. Like my wife, super supportive. I know she saw like how I always wanted to be in this room where I'm working because I really loved what I did from the marketing side. So when I told her that I was gonna like put my notice in with the engineering company, she was worried, but then like we are very logical. Like, hey, like we're doing good. Like we see the path forward, and we just sold the gym, so it's like there's less bills right now. So like, let's at least try it. And worst case scenario, I still have my degree. We can go back to it if needed. Never going to do that again. So I can throw that in the garbage. But yeah, that was great. But then it also became interesting with other friends and family members where they just kind of saw that I sat around. This is pre-COVID. So before it was cool to work at home, like I was that guy at home. So people thought I was a stay-at-home dad. And I'm like, no, I'm actually working. Like, this is what I do. I'm here. And talking to family members, letting them know that this is a real job, not just something I'm trying out. That was tough. Like, and it's funny because I've been in the marketing space for a decade and I still have those conversations with very similar family members where I'm like, no, this is my career now. It was supposed to be sitting in a cubicle, doing drafting and CAD stuff all the time, but now it's this. So those mindsets, those are difficult. Honestly, it's very frustrating to have those conversations at this stage in my career. But if I'm still having them 10 years in, they're not going anywhere, and I'm not going to be trying to change people's minds anymore.
No, I mean, you changed one cubicle, one office to a different office, right? So
Yeah,
how do you separate? Because they say that your home is supposed to be like your dwelling where you relax, you eat, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, when you have a home office, right, you can create that business environment. How do you separate like you feeling like this is work for this is relax? Because if you leave an actual office, a cubicle, and you drive home, like you can put a different face on. But when you're
yeah.
in the same house the whole day, like how do you overcome that?
That was a new one, right? So the way that and this took a while to figure out. Honestly, it probably took 18 months to really get to the point where I am now. First step was to shut off all notifications. Like for my team, we use WhatsApp and Slack. I don't get any of those notifications on this thing at all. That the apps are there, but I don't have them shoot anything. And when I'm done here, I shut the screens off. I shut the lights off, and like that's my driving home. Like that's where I turn the switch off. And then at the same time, like my team and the project managers and the clients that we work with, they know I'm very clear about my schedule. I tell them like I'm a husband and a father first. So at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're done. Everything else will be handled by my team, or I will get to you in the morning. And for the most part, I think everyone we work with so far is a family member of some sort, so they get it. So putting those things in place, it wasn't easy and it didn't happen all at once. There was definitely times where like I'll leave this on and I'll hear something like a ding, and like I got OCD. I will hear like, if I see an email come in or Slack, I'm like, oh, I should check that. It is to the point where I think even last night I accidentally left my computer on before I went to bed. I come here to shut it off, and my email was open, and I saw how many emails I had, and I was like, oh no. I had to just shut my eyes and like find the power button and shut this thing down. But there was definitely times where I would sneak back in here, or like my kids are eating in the other room, and I'd come in and I'd get stuck here for an hour or two, and that's unhealthy, and because it's weird to say, but like, and there's nothing that we do that is extremely urgent. We do a lot of Facebook ads, we do a lot of email marketing, but nothing that's gonna like wreck someone's business in a 8 hour period if we don't turn a campaign on or off. Nothing like that. So and the team's good, so we don't have to worry about that to begin with.
No, I mean I think that's super important right there. Like what you just said, that's really powerful. That as a young entrepreneur, as a new entrepreneur, right? We can sometimes feel like every problem is like an end all be all like problem. If we don't do it right now, the world's gonna burn. And it's like, it's not.
Yeah,
In most cases, it's not, right? So whether it's you're in the growth phase, whether you're in day one, right? It's one of those things where you get to realize that like you have to have that separation. Like for you, it's you're turning off the light switch in the room, and that's basically your transition mode, right? Because I'm very similar right now in my position as well. And it's one of those things where you have to have that boundary, or else everything blends together, and your family especially won't appreciate it because you're always in work mode, right? And how old's your daughter now?
I got a 5 and a 7-year-old.
Okay, so they're mobile, they're running now, So
Yeah,
it's one of those things where they're like they need their time too with you, At least like that's how I feel, right? So it's like you can't always be in work mode because then they feel like they never get you.
exactly. Yeah, and like even if you don't have kids and you're at your desk or you're actively working on something, you're typically either planning or reacting, right? You're thinking like, hey, what am I going to do tomorrow or next quarter? Or you're dealing with a fire. But if you can get the point where you can compartmentalize and detach, and you're going to go for a walk, go work out, go not work for a little bit, that's usually when like your body can mentally recover and ideas will come then. It's very rare that I'm sitting here on a call, on a client call, or actively working that I'm thinking of like good ideas and good strategies. That stuff comes outside of this room. And it's that took a while for me to figure out. There would be times where, last year, the year before, I would put on my calendar, because I'm very calendar driven. I would put it there that I need to sit down on Tuesday between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and I got to think about strategies. I can't do that. Like, you can't. It's the creative process that you have to kind of be in the right flow state and the right mindset for. So like, I usually get that in the morning. Like I'll drop my kids off at school, come home, I have another dog over here that will walk. He's super old. I'll take the dog for a walk, and then I get halfway through my walk, and I'm texting my team, I'm texting my clients, like, oh, look at all the stuff that's when it happens. It doesn't happen here. So you have to move away from acting and reacting to actually move your business forward.
No, I agree with you, and I'm actually similar, and I had that similar realization for myself, where if I'm like in front of the computer, if I'm working on the business, like in the business, anything that you're doing, it's just the normal operations, whatever your to-do list was, reacting to any issues. But sometimes, like for me, if like I step away, or if we're trying to create something, an expansion or something, it's like I can't necessarily always do it just sitting here and be like, all right, now think. It's like my brain doesn't work like that. So like for me, like going on a run or going to work out, I know you worked out right before, we hopped on today. It's like those for me naturally are when like the best ideas come. And then it's like, okay, now I have the idea, I take a note down. And when I come back to, the office, it's like, now let's figure out how this actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. I slack myself all the time, and I'll just like set reminders to like remind me that later. And that's how I do it. I've got buddies who carry pen and paper and notepad with them. However it works best for you, like that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and then for those who don't know, Slack is an app that you can, message and do a whole different team thing, right? He's not slacking off, right? um, so, but I'm the same though. Yeah, I use like my notepad on my phone, that or WhatsApp, like with my team too. So now with everything going on, you've transitioned from, obviously an engineer. I'm assuming that you went that path because from what it sounds like, it wasn't always a dream of yours to be an engineer. It was like you saw it as a solid job, a solid career, and that's a route you went. And then opening the gym and now having, transition to the marketing, what have you found to be your purpose or your driving force for being an entrepreneur?
Well, first thing is having a family. Like that's the backbone of every decision that I make right now is just I want to make sure that I can provide for my family, and I'm able now to give my wife the option. She works, she's in the medical field, but she has the option to work. Like, I was really happy to get the point to tell her, like, you can work if you want, but you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's almost like the father. This is gonna be weird if one of my teammates ever sees this. Like the father figure of my team. Like, I want to give them other things in their life other than work to do. I was having a conversation last month with one of our media buyers. He's, younger kid than me. He's got a couple young kid, like newer kids, and we're talking about cars because I love cars. And I was like, well, he was looking at getting a new car, and I was like, well, like, what do you have now? Like, what do you want to afford later on? And in my head, he's telling me what he wants, and I'm looking up, I'm knowing the price. I'm like, what can I get him for projects that can allow him to buy that for his family, or what can he, like, all this sort of stuff that I want to get the people on my team to live the life that they truly deserve, that they want. And so it's kind of it's gone beyond just getting more clients and more projects, but it's getting more for my team. Like, what can I do for them?
Honestly, right there, that's like a mic drop moment right there. Like, what I mean by that is it's crazy because, like, that realization, that thought process that you just said of, because as a business owner, you want to provide value for your customer, right? You want to, for marketing, like, you're trying to impact someone's business in a positive manner to increase their business, which increases their lifestyle, right? But your goal with it is to grow the business, not for you and for necessarily your family alone, but so that you can help other people create that career or that lifestyle that they desire. Right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And over the last 10 years, I've worked at other marketing teams and agencies, and I've seen good, I've seen bad. So that's kind of one of my things is, like, I've seen more of the bad, right? I've seen how, like, contractors get treated, how they get paid, how they kind of deal with the client side. And that was, I think about 3 years ago, I made the decision that I'm done, just going to keep going forward with my team. And that was the cornerstone. I said, like, we're going to be different from an internal standpoint, because a lot of people can run Facebook ads. A lot of people can do email marketing. It's not hard, but it's how people communicate and how they treat one another. Those are the difference makers on both sides of the coin, the contractors and the client side. So I wanted to make sure that we did that differently. We did that better, and we are doing that.
No, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and, like, just to, like, rewind to what you were mentioning for your team though too, is like, your team is going to help you do those things, right? And your team, like, you seeing the bad at companies, the good at companies, it's like you taking the things that worked and that you saw that were highlights of each company has allowed you to, make a better company for yourself. But as an entrepreneur, you have to realize that your team is going to help you get to those things. And if you value your team and your team values you and sees the vision, not just hears you talking about this vision, but sees the vision and sees you trying to do these things for them, that's going to pay you dividends tenfold, right, in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's for a younger entrepreneur, that's tough. Like, that's tough to think about that. Cause, I remember, when I was living in New York and I had my CrossFit gym, and I was helping, I think, 2 other local-ish CrossFit gyms. At that time, I was thinking, I just need to get paid. Like, we lost a few members. I need to make that up. Like, I just needed the money. But that was a much different mindset. So now it's more of that abundance mindset that we hear so much about, that you just need to think beyond the initial need and think where you're going to go. And that's just been the driving force, just to kind of figure out, like, where do we want to be? Where do I want my people to be? Where do they want to be? I'm straight up when I ask them. Like, I usually just within the last hour, I messaged my email marketing director. I was like, what happens if we, get 20 clients, 20 new ones? Like, how is that going to affect your life? Because you do a lot. How are you going to deal with that? And I just want to know, like, tell me. So, we're not going to do that because we don't want to have that sort of problem. But I love throwing random questions out there so we can start thinking ahead. Like, you're not going to be able to do it all. How can you get yourself in a position where mentally you can handle just a little bit more and do things the right way, the same way you're doing them now? So it's a matter of trying to work on their mindsets too, because I think about it all the time. It's not just because we're talking, but I try to help people get into those mindsets too, and that's tough.
It is. So is that one way that you build, like, 'cause building a team and leading a team, right? It's tough already, right? Especially if for those individuals that aren't natural like leaders, because there's some people that are just natural leaders, and then there's other people that build up leadership skills. But with asking questions, I mean, I've found, just like you were saying, like that's a great way to get your team like in the mindset of like, okay, like how can the company improve, or how can we do this? Like if this happened, what would we do, or how would it improve my life, or whatever the case is. What other things do you do to help strengthen your team as a whole and your individual team members?
Sure. Yeah. One thing that I started doing in January is well, I forget one of the books that I've been reading, but at the end of the day, I write the 3 wins of the day and the 3 things I want to do for the next day. You've probably already read the book. You probably think of the Dan Sullivan book in mind. But I'll ask my team, because I've got people who will, like, at the end of the day, they'll send me the report for the day. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is great. But then there's like a little section on one of these reports that says like wins for the day. And every so often I'll see that it's not filled in. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, well, like, I can't really think of anything. I was like, it doesn't have to be work related. Like, tell me 3 great things that happened to you, or at least 3 good things. Like, trying to almost like force them to get into that track. Like, because some people there, I think it's The Gap and the Gain. Is that the name of the book? Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
They're in the gap thinking, right? So like, we're trying to like pull them out of there and say like, hey, like, you had a good breakfast today. It could be something simple like that, but just to at least steer them in the right path. So when I'm having conversations with them, and that kind of goes back to some of the things I'm seeing in other places where the communication's bad, where like they just like some people just care about the result for the day. I like to have actual conversations. Like most of the team conversations I have and some of the client conversations, it's 80% just like this. Just how are you? Tell me about your day. Tell me about your life. What have you been up to? Like I want to make sure that people are emotionally there and happy. And then the people we hire are just great at their job. I don't have to worry about the actual work getting done if they're in the right mindset. So most of the conversation is just keeping them where I think they need to be mentally.
No, I mean that's huge. You're showing and demonstrating that it's not you're not just contacting them or talking to them about business and solely about this and their performance and stuff like that, but you're caring about them as an individual, and that it's a little bit deeper. With that being said, though, how do you transition from that? How do you transition from that? Like, how are you doing? How are you doing mentally? To you're not doing the things that you need to do. You need to step up.
Yeah. As rare as those occasions are, it kind of does go back to having like good, smart people. Those things do come up. Where like, hey, like I'm not a confrontational person. So if we're having a conversation and we've kind of gotten past the fluff, I'm like, hey, that email the other day, like, why didn't it go out? Like, I'm direct. Like we'll just kind of turn the conversation, be like, what happened here? There's when those things need to come up, there's no reason to beat around the bush. Like at that point, like with all my team members, like they know I care about them. Like they know that I got their back. I'm not going to turn around and like bad talk them to a client, like, oh, this guy sucks. I got you. No, like I got my team's back first and foremost because they're the ones that help me build the business. So, if there's an issue, we figure out what happened. And it's usually something small, something minor. And then we say, okay, so the email that didn't go out, we were waiting on copywriting, whatever it is. Okay, let's go back to the copywriting SOP, real sexy, boring stuff. But we'll see where the issue was. Maybe they didn't read the SOP. A lot of people don't. Like they're boring, but they need to be done. And we figure out where the problem is, and we say, hey, let's highlight this and go back to it. So and then, make sure that the rest of the team knows, hey, we had an issue here. Just make sure you're aware of it and move forward. So just being direct is easy to do when they know you actually care about them outside of the result of the work.
And I think something you just mentioned, whether you know this or not, how you approached it is actually really powerful, right? Because as an entrepreneur, new or a veteran in the game, it can be difficult for someone that wants to be the friend boss or the friend, owner, and then the other person on the other side of the spectrum is like, I'm the owner and I'm this, right? You can be a blend, right? And the fact is, like, caring about someone has nothing to do with either side of the spectrum. Like, that's just being a genuine person. But what you did is really smart, and I've had to learn this skill over time too. Is I'm very direct, and it doesn't, for me, it's not intentional to come off as like rude or hard or whatever. But I'll just be like, you didn't send out the email. What happened, right? And then it's like, okay, but the way you're approaching it is, hey, like, there was an email yesterday that was supposed to be sent out. Like, why didn't that get sent out? Can you explain it to me? And like, so asking a question versus a blame is already so powerful, because maybe there was something that happened. You're not allowing yourself to jump to conclusions or overreact to a situation that could have been just a first time mistake, an honest mistake. You guys solved the problem, right? And so just by doing that, it allows your team member to answer the question and also think about the process of where it went wrong, allowing them to grow, right? Because if you get upset at every problem that happens, you're not going to have a team for very long.
Yeah, and it's more stress. Who needs that, right? I mean, there's times where, like, if you come to me and you say, hey, what happened? I have to verbally explain. And I feel that's a more powerful way to learn something instead of just, someone saying, you did this wrong. Like, I have to sit there and think about it, like you said, and then explain what happened. And I'm going to remember that conversation because I said it next time it comes up, instead of like, oh, I got yelled at.
Exactly. And it resonates differently with them. Like you said, like, if you get yelled at, immediately we go into defense mode and we shut down. So then, even though you're yelling and you're teaching them at the same time, or let's say you're just starting teaching them, they may only be listening to like 50% of what you're saying. But if they're having to explain it step by step, it goes into that other side of it where, like, if you can teach something, you learn it at a deeper level. So if they have to walk through the process, all of a sudden they're starting to learn it, either relearn it or learn it at a deeper level than they did before, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they're teaching themselves. Makes it easier on the management side. You just ask the question, sit back, and you're good.
No, exactly. So how do you paint that vision for your team, like with the growth of the company, with their growth? Like what do you do in terms of, like, how you said you ask questions, like what lifestyle are you trying to do? How do you tie that into like the growth of the company?
Just using the conversation I had with my email guy, just like, hey, what happens if we grow? And I know, like, speaking to this individual, he likes to travel. And so I'm like, well, like, you have a great job because you can go anywhere in the world. He's actually going to fly. He's over in Europe. He's going to fly to the States and visit for a little bit. And like, he can travel and do his work. And so I want to make sure with this gentleman in particular, like, okay, if you can travel every day of the year, but how are you going to, like, adjust your day to still get the things done? We have other team members who are, mothers and fathers. And what does that look like for them? Like, how do they split their day up? Because I'm like I said earlier, I'm very calendar driven. I like to know that, like, when during the week I can do certain things. And I look at people's task list more or less through that lens. Like, okay, so, like, how is your day broken up? Do you do crazy stuff like me, wake up at 3:50 and work? Or do you sleep until noon and then you're like crushing the rest of the day? And that way I know kind of what your life more or less looks like. And, it kind of goes back to having lots of conversations with them too, where I can see things they like, things they want to do, and try to, remember those when I'm talking to them.
No, that's awesome. So, I think your key thing is communication with the team.
Oh yeah, all the time. Like, that's our number one thing, is just communication. Because, like, I'm an over communicator. I tell that to everybody. I've always been kind of like that, but that's the biggest gap that I've seen in the marketing agency world is just the lack of communication. It's stunning.
Oh, believe me, I've faced that in the past. Like I completely get it.
Yeah.
So I want to tie this into what we talked about. You worked out before this. How important do you feel that working out or exercise is in someone as, in an entrepreneurial journey, right? Because the business can get crazy, especially in the launch phase and the startup phase, and we can tend to forget to work out. But for you, what is your opinion on like entrepreneurship and fitness? Like what is that relationship?
They go hand in hand, for sure. I mean, if you have a healthy body, healthy mind, you're optimized to make the best decisions for yourself, your teammates, your business, your clients. It's have you ever been to see a doctor who's just overweight? Like, are you gonna listen to that person? Probably
Yeah.
not. And that it helps me. Like I work out with two other dads in the neighborhood, and they texted me a half hour before they showed up. And when they came, I was like, I'm glad you guys texted me because today would have been one of those days that I kicked the workout down the road until I was too tired and skipped it. And then I just kind of have that like I defeatist attitude, like, oh man, I missed my workout. That's terrible, and bad thoughts. But it's very important, I feel, to work out for a lot of reasons, right? So you can separate yourself from your work for a little bit. Going back to what we talked about earlier, where you're out there, you're not thinking about this stuff, you're thinking about that stuff, and other things will pop up. And then it could be a good thing from a networking standpoint if you're going to a gym, part of a gym, where you have a chance to meet people who you wouldn't otherwise know. There's a lot of really awesome people out there, so there's great chances there. And then the overall health stuff. I mean, it's going to be easier to sit here and work if you're healthy, as opposed to if you're full of inflammation and you're getting sick all the time and missing work because you kind of have a crappy diet and you don't take care of yourself. And those are the big reasons right there.
No, I think that you hit it like spot on, and it's one thing I've also noticed. I'm not sure. I mean, from what it sounds like, you've always been into fitness and stuff. But like you said, the doctor analogy that you kind of gave, right? There's in business, people subconsciously will tend to lead to do business with other people that are aesthetically pleasing to the eye, right? If they have two choices. And it's not necessarily so superficial. It's just like, this person looks good, I'm going to work with them. It's just because there's other aspects that we know subconscious that go with fitness, right? I'm not talking about just handsome or beautiful or something. I'm talking about like physically fit, right? And there's habits and stuff that are built with that, such as, your discipline, your consistency, your self-motivation, all those kind of things that someone, if you're physically fit, you walk into a room, people already know you're dedicated, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
think that's huge to, think about as well. I mean, you always being into fitness, I mean, you've had that response, whether you've known it or not, but you're not going to hire a trainer that looks like they need a trainer. You're not going to hire a marketer that their business has one follower on, social media, right? It's like, it goes back both ways. It's like the proof is in the pudding, and you also are, a walking representation for your team, for your business. And it doesn't necessarily mean always like, I'm a doctor, I need to look like a doctor. It's like, if you look good, then it looks like you actually care about yourself. And so when you say you care about me, if you don't care about yourself, I know you're not going to care about me.
Exactly. Yeah. You're
Right.
just nailing the head there. That's perfect.
So before we wrap things up, what I like to do is pose a hypothetical question, right?
Okay.
So the hypothetical question is all your business, everything that you've done in the past, your social medias are all gone, right?
Okay.
And with them all being gone, you're allowed to leave one message for the world, whether it's for entrepreneurs, whether it's for fathers, whatever the case is. What would that one message be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, we can leave that for both. Fathers, entrepreneurs. Is as hard as it is for some people. communication. Like that is the golden ticket. That's the key that's going to help you in life more than you'll ever know. If you're not communicating with your wife or your kids, terrible things are going to happen. If you're not communicating with your team or your clients and your customers, you're not going to serve them. So a lot of us, including me, have to, I'm definitely an over communicator, but I wasn't always. So I had to kind of get over myself a lot, and definitely at the house here, we're just saying what's on your mind, has to happen, whether good, bad, or indifferent. There's nothing really good that's going to come from keeping your thoughts, opinions, and feelings inside. So communicate.
No, that's awesome, and I agree with that. It's undervalued, and that should be blown up for so many people. Communication is the answer to a lot of stress and a lot of problems, that you do face. Dad or entrepreneur or dadapreneur, right? Whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Yeah. Where can people connect with you on social media, with your business?
Yeah, I can drop my Instagram handle in here, and our website's fusionmarketing.io. There's a contact button, and I'm pretty good at communicating on that one, so you're good to go.
Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll leave that in the show notes as well. Guys, make sure you guys share this episode with a friend, whether they're a business owner, whether they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, if they're a parent in just any professional space, overcoming those mental battles. Make sure you guys share the show, leave a review. And Brian, thank you so much for coming on today.
Dude, thanks, Devin. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Of course. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, man.